preliminary matters. First, we are asking that the court re-admonish Mr. McClendon on his right to an attorney.
All right. All right, Mr. McClendon, if you'd unmute.
I'm here, Your Honor. Sorry, I was having computer problems.
All right, if you'll hang on there, Officer Cummings, for just a minute. Mr. McClendon, we were here originally on this adversary hearing on January 5th, and I admonished you then on your right to an attorney, but at the request of the department, I will do so again. You have the right to be represented by an attorney. If you can't afford an attorney, you have the right to ask that the court consider whether or not you're entitled to a court-appointed attorney at no cost to you. Do you understand those rights?
Yes, sir, I do.
All right, did you want to ask for an attorney today?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. Something else, Ms. Gutierrez?
Yes, Your Honor. I inquire with Ms. Archer if her client is a member of any Indian tribe, or if, to her knowledge, the children are a member of any Indian tribe.
All right, Ms. Archer's not in this case.
I'm sorry, Ms. Kincaid, I apologize. I'm so sorry, Savannah.
No, you're good. Actually, that was something that I wanted to take up in the petition. In the affidavit, it said that they denied tribal connections, but in my conversations with my client, she has claimed that there may be some Native American heritage. I asked if they were on a roll or anything to that effect, and she said that she wasn't aware that they were, but she wanted to do research or ask the department to do any testing required to determine whether the children do have Native American heritage.
So, Ms. Kincaid, are you saying that at this time, to your client's knowledge, she is not a member of an Indian tribe and neither are the children?
Yeah, she's saying that she's not a member of any tribe at this time.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kincaid. Mr. McClendon, I inquire if you are a member of any Indian tribe.
Yes, ma'am.
What tribe is that?
Navajo, Arapaho, Cherokee tribe. And we are stationed at plenty reservations in New Mexico.
What is your membership ID number?
I'm not sure. My parents have that information.
Mr. McClendon, you said Navajo, Arapaho, and who else?
Cherokee.
Okay.
Mr. McClendon, what is the specific tribe name of the Navajo tribe you are claiming membership of?
Chippewa.
And what is the specific Indian tribe you are claiming membership of that's Arapaho?
Again, that's going to be information that my grandparents have, as they were not allowed to give me this information, or I hadn't even had a chance to speak with them throughout this whole process.
What is the specific tribe of Cherokee that you are a member of?
Again, same answer. I'm not sure of that information.
Your Honor, we ask the court to reserve its ruling on whether or not the children are Indian children, so that the department can send notice to the Bureau of Indian Affairs and find out if these children are indeed, or if the parents are tribal members.
All right, I will withhold that ruling until we've notified the Indians pursuant to the ICWA Act. So, all right then, Officer Cummings, if you would please raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir, I do.
All right, thank you, Ms. Gutierrez. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Cummings, who do you work for?
The Amarillo Police Department.
And what do you do for them?
I'm in the patrol unit.
Are you a certified police officer?
Yes, ma'am.
What special education and training did that require?
I went through the Peace Officers Academy with the Amarillo Police Department for approximately 8 months, where I passed the TCOL certification to become a peace officer.
Are you current on your continuing education requirements?
Yes, ma'am.
And how long have you been a police officer for?
About 1.5 years.
Okay. And did you respond to the home of Jonathan McClendon on March 10th of 2023?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was the call out for?
It was in reference to an assault.
And when you arrived, did you meet Ms. Alyssa Lopez?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And what was her demeanor?
She was very upset and emotional, belligerent, and was screaming and yelling. outside the residence.
What did she state had occurred?
She said that she had been assaulted by Mr. McClendon.
Okay. And did she state that she was trying to see her kids and that Mr. McClendon punched her in the face?
Yes, ma'am. She said that she came over to see her kids and confront Jonathan about seeing another woman.
And due to her demeanor, did you have to put her in the back of a squad car?
Yes, ma'am.
And was she eventually able to calm down and tell you what occurred?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what did she state?
She said that she had been punched in the face by Jonathan 2 times. Like I said, she came over to see her kids and confront Jonathan about seeing another woman.
Did you observe any injuries to her face consistent with being assaulted?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you observe?
I saw some swelling and redness just above her right and left cheeks.
Okay. And can you explain what a Dale form is?
It's a danger for law enforcement, a danger assessment for law enforcement is what the Dale stands for.
And did Ms. Lopez fill out a Dale assessment form at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
And while filling it out, did she indicate that there had been multiple previous physical incidents with Mr. McClendon?
Yes, ma'am.
Did she also indicate that he had priorly threatened to kill her?
I believe so, yes.
Now, due to it not being her home at that time, was she trespassed from that property?
Yes, Mr. McClendon asked that we trespass her.
And did she leave the property in compliance with that?
Yes.
Now, pass the witness.
Ms. Kincaid?
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. McClendon, any questions?
Yes, sir. I had a question. Is the date of this incident we are speaking of? Could we reiterate that, please?
It was March 10th of 2023.
March 10th of 2023. Okay. Can you to your recollection, do you remember what my demeanor was that day? Did you speak with me on that day? I'm sorry.
I personally did not. My partners tried to talk with you in person, but you refused to answer the door. So we spoke to you through the door.
Okay. Next question is, could it have been that the swelling you observed above her eyes, to your professional experience, could it have been from her crying and rubbing her eyes a lot?
It was below her eyes, but above her cheeks. So in my professional opinion, it was that she had just been hit.
Another question, could it have been that she was inebriated?
I don't remember her being intoxicated.
Okay. Was any breathalyzer ever done?
No, because I didn't believe that she was intoxicated at the time.
Okay, sir. I don't believe it was mentioned who the caller was. You said you were out there on a call for assault.
It was Miss Lopez.
You can't give that information out, officer.
Okay.
The report. Yeah.
Do you is to your recollection, is there a report from me that day calling for an assault?
I believe you called or wanted to speak with one of our sergeants, and you spoke with Sergeant Finsterwald.
Or do you have a recollection of the fact that I either did or did not call for assistance that day dealing with an assault?
Your Honor, objection asked and answered.
Overruled. You can answer, officer.
Mr. McClendon wanted to speak with our sergeant because he was wanting her trespassed, which was in relation to the assault, why we were there.
No further questions.
All right, Mr. Ingram, questions?
No questions.
No, Your Honor.
Anyone have follow-up? Ms. Kincaid, questions?
Just one. Was anyone charged with anything that day?
We made a report for an assault causing bodily injury to a family member. I believe the case was presented to the Randall County DA. I'm not entirely sure what happened after that.
Okay, who was the perpetrator in the complaint?
It would be Mr. McClendon. He was listed as the suspect.
Thank you. I'll pass witness.
Anyone else for Officer Cummings?
No, Your Honor, we ask that he be released.
All right, any objections?
No objection.
All right then. All right. Officer Cummings, thank you for your testimony. Thank you for your service. I'll remove you so you can go about the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Your Honor, may I inquire if Keegan Ramirez is in the waiting room? He would be
Yep.
my next witness.
Yes, ma'am, he is. I'll get him in. Mr. Ramirez, this is Judge Grant. If you'd unmute, please. Thank you, sir. If you'd raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Ms. Gutierrez.
Thank you, Your Honor. At this time, we ask that the court take judicial notice of the temporary order for required participation signed by the court on May 19th of 2023.
All right, so noted.
Thank you. We next ask that the court take judicial notice that it found both parents did cause a continuing danger to the physical health or safety of the children, or the substantial risk of abuse or neglect, or was the perpetrator of the abuse or neglect.
So noted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Keegan, who do you work for?
The Department of Family and Protective Services.
And what do you do for them?
I am a family-based caseworker.
And what is your experience with Jonathan McClendon and Alyssa Lopez?
I had a order to participate family-based case with both parents.
Okay. And who were the children that were a part of that case?
Let me pull up their names really quick.
Okay. And thank you, Keegan. And you are a family-based safety services worker, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And can you explain what you do as an FBSS worker?
I work with families, basically in order to prevent a removal from happening. And the way I explain it is working on the issues that brought in an investigation to basically negate the concerns, in order for me to basically close my case.
And in this particular case with McClendon and Lopez, this was from an order to participate, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And was that the order that the court took judicial notice of a few minutes ago?
Yes, ma'am.
And in that order was Ms. Lopez ordered to complete Women Against Violence program?
Yes, ma'am.
And generally, what is that program?
It is a program due to domestic violence for an aggressor that is a female. It works on basically teaching them mainly like anger management and the ability to see specific reasons for a relationship that could contain violence.
And in addition to that, was she also ordered to do substance abuse related services?
Yes, ma'am.
And was Mr. McClendon ordered in that same order to complete the Batters Intervention Program?
Yes, ma'am.
And briefly, what is the Batters Intervention Program?
It's like the WAVE program, just dealing with male aggressors, working on anger management, and also working to prevent any more further domestic violent incidents in the future.
And was he also ordered to address substance abuse services?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, during your family-based safety services case, how would you characterize Mr. McClendon's cooperation with you?
I would describe it as difficult, due to in the very beginning of the case, I wasn't allowed to see the children or enter the home on multiple occasions. Throughout the life of that specific case, I was never allowed inside of the home.
Okay. Were you allowed to see the children later in that FBSS case?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And how would you characterize Ms. Lopez's cooperation with you during that family-based safety services case?
Alyssa was cooperative. She would talk to me on the phone. We had visits, and she was the one that was able to help me be able to lay eyes on the children later on in the case.
Okay. Now, during the case, what occurred that the children were no longer in Mr. McClendon or Ms. Lopez's home?
In that case, the children were asked to, well, not asked. Mr. McClendon and Alyssa had the children move with Jonathan's sister to Chicago.
And were you able to do a virtual walkthrough of that home to confirm it was appropriate?
Yes, ma'am.
And also during the FBSS case, was mom allegedly living in New Mexico?
Yes, ma'am.
And was Mr. McClendon also claiming that he was about to move to New Mexico also?
Yes, ma'am.
And was it under these circumstances that that order to participate was dismissed?
Yes.
Okay, pass the witness.
Ms. Kincaid?
During the course of that case, did Miss Lopez complete the wave training?
No, ma'am, not to my knowledge.
Did she complete any kind of drug related services?
Yes, ma'am. In my report, back at that time, I'm trying to find which specific program, but she had completed an outpatient program.
Okay. And did she undergo a mental evaluation?
I can't recall at this time.
Okay. But she maintained contact with you during for the life of the case as long as it was open?
Yes, ma'am.
And she was cooperative with you during the case?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
All right, Mr. McClendon, questions?
Yes, sir. First question, Mr. Keegan, have you ever received documentation of plane tickets or logistics information for my kids' travel to Chicago?
No, sir.
So are you privileged to the information when they left, when they returned, how many times?
No, sir.
Next question. Isn't it perfectly possible that the reason you were not able to see the children because they were in Chicago?
Yes, sir.
Next question. Isn't it due to you, in your word, that I didn't no longer have to finish those services, the BIP and all those services that you offered me, because of what I was willing to do for the safety of my children by relocating them permanently if I wanted to sign over my rights?
At that time, the way I explained it to you was since the kids were in Chicago, that the case would be closed due to the children being in Chicago out of the state to where we couldn't assess child safety at that point.
At that time, did you inquire as to the fact that they were already there, had been previously recently relocated?
At that time, yes, sir.
Objective form. I'm not real, Mr. McClendon, I apologize. Can you restate your question a little clearer?
At that time, did you inquire as to the fact that my children were relocated or had already been in Chicago?
Yes, sir, to my knowledge. That they were in Chicago when I completed that virtual visit at your sister's house.
Okay. Is it to your knowledge that they were in Chicago before you asked for the virtual visit?
Yes, sir, to my knowledge that they were already in Chicago.
Also, is it your knowledge that they were in Chicago on vacation?
To my knowledge that they were placed there by you and Alyssa.
Might I ask for what reason did you receive from me or heard that day that they were placed in Chicago?
In my documentation, it said that you had placed your children with your sisters in order to prevent a removal from happening in the future.
And yes, sir. Which party, Alyssa or myself, did you receive that information from to document it?
Let's take a look. It was you, Jonathan.
It was me that said that I placed my children there for
Yes.
for what purposes again?
So on 6/22/23 at your residence, I had asked you if the kids were still going back to Chicago. You said yes, due to the
Might I
fear of the
interrupt you?
children being removed.
Might I interrupt you? Did you just
Yes.
say
No, sir.
going back?
No,
Did
sir,
you just say-
excuse me. Mr. McClendon, you may not interrupt him. Let him finish his answer before you ask a sentence or interrupt.
Okay.
So I'd asked you if the kids were still going back to Chicago. Jonathan said yes, due to the fear of the children being removed.
Okay. So I am asking you to reiterate, you did just say going back to Chicago, right?
Yes, sir.
Which would insinuate that they were previously in Chicago already.
Yes, sir.
Which would also, to make note of the court, to make note to the court, would also prove that they were brought here from Chicago even to see you.
Correct.
Okay. No further questions.
All right, Mr. Ingram.
No questions.
All right, anyone have follow-ups for Mr. Ramirez? No? Can he be excused or do we need him?
He can be excused, Your Honor.
All right, if there's no objections, then
No
Mr.
objection.
Ramirez? Okay, can you hear us?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. If you would raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sergeant, who do you work for
The Amarillo Police Department.
and what do you do for them?
I'm an evening shift patrol supervisor.
And are you a certified police officer?
Yes.
And did you receive a phone call from a Mr. Jonathan McClendon on March 10th of 2023?
I actually received a message from dispatch to call him. So I initiated the phone call.
Okay. And when you called, did he answer?
Yes.
And what did he state about the incident on March 10th of 2023?
He told me that no assault occurred, that he had remained in the home while the female, Miss Lopez, was outside, beating on the windows and doors, trying to get in. He claimed to never have left the home, and the front door was never open for her.
Did he indicate that the children were inside the home at that time?
Yes.
Okay. And did he also deny assaulting her?
Yes.
To your knowledge, was Mr. McClendon refusing to speak with other officers?
I asked him several times to open the door and speak to the officers, and he declined to.
Okay, pass the witness.
Ms. Kincaid?
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. McClendon, questions?
Officer Fitzwell, is that how you say your name? I did not pronounce
Yes,
it.
sir.
Okay. On the day in question, do you remember the entirety of our conversation?
I probably not. We spoke maybe 10 minutes.
Okay, so I just wanted to note that because we had an extensive conversation. Want to make sure that you got the full gist of it. Do you remember me saying that the reason I didn't want to open the door to officers is because I heard them saying that they would arrest me?
I believe so. You also said that the children were asleep and you did not want to wake them.
Yes, sir. Did I also say that I was afraid of such because I was the one that called dispatch to deal with the incident?
You might have, I don't recall.
Okay, to your knowledge, was it ever affirmed that assault occurred that day?
Your Honor.
I don't know what you mean by.
Your Honor, may I take this witness on voir dire?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sergeant Fitzgerald, were you present on the scene of the incident on March 10th of 2023?
No.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, I request that this witness not give an opinion on whether or not it was confirmed that an assault occurred.
That as an objection, that's sustained.
Okay, but Judge, I'm asking to his knowledge, was it affirmed that this happened? Not if he was there and not if he has an opinion on it.
That would be hearsay, which is not admissible. He wasn't there. He can only testify to what he saw.
Yes, sir, Judge, which is what I'm trying to prove by what was being said on the other side of our conversation.
That's not how you do it. And I've told you before, I can't give you legal advice, but that's not the proper way to do that.
Okay, Officer Fitzgerald, did these, anything outside of the conversation, did these things occur in your visual knowledge, or were they told to you from other officers?
They did not occur in my presence, no.
No further questions.
All right, Mr. Ingram.
No questions.
All right, anyone have follow-up questions for Officer or Sergeant Finsterwall?
No, Your Honor.
All right, may he be excused. You swear the
No
testimony you give will
objection.
be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right, thank you, sir. Ms. Gutierrez?
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Powell, who do you work for?
I work for the Amarillo Police Department.
And what do you do for them?
I am a patrol officer for the South Side evening shift.
Are you a certified police officer?
Yes.
What special education and training did that require?
Required me going to the police academy, graduating, and graduating the FTO program.
And are you current on your continuing education requirements?
Yes, I am.
And on December 13th of 2023, were you dispatched to the home of Jonathan McClendon?
Yes, I was.
And is that here in Randall County?
Yes.
What was the call out for?
It was a 911 hang up. I believe it was Alyssa who called first. She was calling saying that no, APD doesn't help. The call notes were not making a lot of sense.
Okay, but based on that intake or based on that call, did you go to the scene on Royce?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And when you arrived, did you walk up to the door?
Yes.
And who did you see?
I saw 3 very small children.
Okay. And did they appear to be younger than 5 years old?
Yes.
Okay. And at that time, did you also receive a call or did you call Alyssa Lopez?
My partner called Alyssa Lopez.
And did she indicate that she believed Mr. McClendon was in the home?
Yes.
And based on that information, did you leave the residence?
Yes.
And did you receive a call 5 minutes later?
Correct.
What was the call that came in that time?
So the neighbor called, said that there were children out in the street yelling for help.
Okay. And when you arrived, were there children there?
The neighbors had 2 of the children, and
Okay.
the neighbor said that there was one more inside the home that she did not want to go get because she was afraid of the dogs.
And based on that information, did you enter the home on Royce Street where Jonathan McClendon resides?
Yes.
And did you announce yourselves as Amarillo Police when you entered?
Yes.
And what did you see upon entering?
Saw a very small toddler. He was sitting on a couch, watching TV, and he was eating peanut butter out of the jar with his fingers.
Did it appear that there were any adults in the home?
No, ma'am, it did not.
And at that point, did your coworker, Corporal DeWitt, take the child in a blanket?
Yes.
Okay. While you were on the scene, did you speak with Jonathan McClendon?
Later, once he arrived.
Okay. And did he arrive on foot?
Yes, he did.
What did he state about the children and the incident?
He stated that him and his wife, Alyssa, were getting into an argument, and that before things got physical, he wanted to leave. So he left on foot, took a walk, and he was under the impression that Alyssa was still at home whenever he left. And that's where he was. Then later he returned.
Okay. Did Mr. McClendon also indicate he thinks Alyssa blames him so she can get custody of the children?
Yes,
And a short time later, did Alyssa arrive on the scene?
yes, she did.
And what did she state?
She stated that things might have gotten physical, as far as something might have happened in the bedroom of her, I'm sorry, of him grabbing her collar of her shirt. And then she got upset and left on foot. And she said she claims she walked to Western Bowl and had her brother pick her up and give her a ride to somewhere on the boulevard.
Did she indicate that she told the kids she loved them before she left?
Yes,
Would you agree that that indicates the children were present in the home when the altercation happened between her and Mr. McClendon?
yes,
And were you still on the scene when CPS arrived?
yes,
And was that investigator Amy Bailey?
yes.
Pass the witness.
Ms. Kincaid?
Thank you, Your Honor. Whenever you spoke with Ms. Lopez, did you know any physical injuries on her?
No, I did not.
Okay. What was her demeanor? Did she appear to be upset? Was she calm?
She appeared upset.
Okay. And how did she arrive there?
She arrived, somebody gave her a ride in a black pickup.
Okay. Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
All right, Mr. McClendon, questions?
Yes, sir. My dad, Mr. Powell, your name?
Yes,
Officer Powell, you stated that you made it to the house on a 911 hang-up call. When you got there, you made it to the door and you observed the children. Said that your partner called Alyssa and asked where, or when asked where I was, she said that she believed I was inside the house. At that moment, why not go and follow up on that? Why leave?
because we heard from one parent that the other parent was inside, so that we didn't really have any reason to go inside at that point.
So that night, was it police department or yours specifically, was it your main concern that the children were in a safe environment and supervised?
We were under the impression that the children were supervised.
That wasn't my question. Was it your main concern that night?
Not the first call. The first call we were called there for a domestic.
Okay, with that being said, was it any of your concern that night that I may have been harmed?
Possibly, yes.
So with that being said, that night when she stated that she believed I was in the home hiding from you, would that merit a follow-up to check on my safety, seeing as that it was a domestic dispute?
Yes, but we can't just enter a home just given when we have nothing other than a 911 hang-up.
Okay, so with that being said, due to the fact that I could have still been inside the home harmed when you made it to the neighbor's house and they sent you for the 1-year-old child that was still remaining in the house, did you conduct a preliminary search for me and my unharmed or harmed body then?
Your Honor, I'm going to object as to speculation.
Yeah, Mr. McClendon, you're trying to testify through a question. You just ask him questions, not about your harmed or unharmed body.
Okay, so did you conduct the preliminary search for me that night after receiving the information from the neighbors that there was still a 1-year-old child in the house?
No, we did not search the house for you.
So to your knowledge that night, was it a fact that I was there or absent?
Ask me that again in a different way.
Was it, to your knowledge, a fact that I was absent from the home? at that time?
Mr.
Yes.
McClellan, he said he didn't conduct a search of the home, so you're asking him something that would be
So
pure
I'm asking him to clear
speculation.
it up.
Don't interrupt me, sir.
Yes, sir.
That is pure speculation, so don't ask him to speculate when he's already said he did not search the home. We can make this a lot shorter than it's going.
Okay, I'm just trying to make it clear, Your Honor, by saying, did he have a truthful knowledge that I wasn't there?
He's answered, he doesn't know, he didn't look for you.
Well, I never asked that question. I'm sorry. Did you take any pictures that night of what you saw or video of what you saw when you got there?
There is body camera footage.
Has that been admitted into the court for today's proceedings?
Yes, it has been, but it's been downloaded. That's as far as it goes for me.
Your Honor,
Okay.
we've offered no exhibits during this hearing.
I'm aware of that.
Okay. Officer Powell, did you and your colleagues talk to anyone else that night?
We talked to you, Alyssa, and the neighbors.
So did you or your colleagues talk to my sister, Taisha McClendon, that night?
Oh, yes.
Do you remember what she said? Could you iterate that?
I do not remember exactly what she said.
I want to make a note that was a direct testimony, so that will, I believe that directly affects the credibility of what we're addressing right now.
Your
As your
Honor, I'm
witness,
gonna object. This doesn't sound like there's a question there.
I asked it already, and I said I wanted to make a note that his credibility was checked in that question.
You can make a note for yourself.
Yes, sir. Oh, I was asking the court to make a note, but never mind. Was she
That's
inebriated?
not my job to make notes.
Okay, thank you. Was she inebriated that night, Mr. Powell?
Objection form, can you indicate who? He just asked about Taisha.
Oh, this-
I don't know who he's asking about.
Was Alyssa Lopez inebriated that night?
I do remember smelling some alcohol.
Do you remember me asking for a breathalyzer test to be done on her?
Vaguely.
Okay. Can you recall, or are you allowed to say why one wasn't provided?
Well, for what purpose?
Well, directly her credibility for what she was saying, and what she was attesting to happened the night in question.
Your Honor, objection form, there's no question there.
I was answering his.
Ask the question. I didn't understand it either.
He asked me a question. He asked why would he perform a breathalyzer test?
Well, all right, then Officer Powell, don't ask questions. You answer questions for us, please.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, can you remember how long it was before Amy got there? Amy, the CPI, the investigator?
I don't remember.
Okay. Was anyone else on the scene that night, to your recollection?
Detective Hodges, I believe.
Officer Powell, do you remember speaking to a Patrick Red that night?
Patrick who?
Patrick Red.
Oh, yes, your cousin, I believe.
Yes, sir. Do you remember what he said to you?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
Well, Your Honor, this would directly affect.
Mr. McClellan, I'm not going to give you a lesson in the law today, but hearsay is anybody that's not a party, and he's not a party, so that what he says is hearsay and it's inadmissible.
Okay. Let me figure out how to ask what I'm trying to ask without involving his name. To your knowledge, was there anyone there to refute what was being said by Miss Alyssa Lopez?
Your Honor, I don't, that question isn't clear enough to understand what he means.
Well, I don't know either, Officer Powell. You can't testify to what someone else there said. You can say whether or not there was someone else there that might refute it.
It's a great question.
Yes, there was someone else there.
Okay, and was there someone that you spoke to that night that did in fact refute what both the neighbors and Alyssa said?
Your
Objection.
Honor, objection, hearsay.
Yeah, I got you. That's still hearsay. If they're not a party, you can't ask what they said.
I didn't ask what they said, Your Honor. I
All
said,
right,
did
listen,
someone?
Mr. McClellan, I'm not gonna give you lessons in the law. I've told you before, you had the right to an attorney. You chose not to have one. That is hearsay. I've sustained the objection. You don't argue with me. You move on to the next question.
Okay, Officer Powell, did you see the children outside in the street yelling for help?
No, I did not.
Were you told that by another party that night?
Yes.
Okay. Did you see, before being told that by another party, the 1-year-old child in the house by himself?
Yes, I was told that the 1-year-old was in the house, and then I visibly did see the 1-year-old by himself in the house.
Okay. Did you see the relocation of my 2 older children?
I saw them in the neighbor's house.
Did you see the relocation? Did you see when they were moved from my house to the neighbor's house?
No, I did not.
So am I clear to ask that you can't, or so am I clear to say that you can't attest to the fact that they were not removed from the house versus in the street?
Well, based on the neighbor's testimony of she did not want to go inside because she was scared of the dogs, leads me to believe she never went inside the house.
But do you have knowledge of the fact that she never went in my house to get the children?
No, I do not.
Okay. With that being said, never mind. No further questions. That's great.
All right, Mr. Ingram,
No questions.
anyone have follow-up questions for Officer Powell?
I do have 2 brief follow-up questions, Your Honor.
Right.
Officer Powell, while you were on the scene, did Mr. McClendon arrive to the scene from somewhere else?
Yes.
And in his conversation with you, did he explain that he had gone for a walk?
Yes.
Ask the witness.
Anyone else have further questions for Officer Powell?
No, Your Honor.
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay.
Was it not, in fact, my statement to you that night that I left because I was being attacked and I wanted to call a ride?
Yes.
Okay, no further questions.
All right, if no one else has further questions, can Officer Powell be excused?
He may be excused, please, Your Honor.
Okay. Officer Powell, thank you for your testimony and thank you for your service. I'll remove you so you can go about the rest of your
December
day.
1st, 2023, did you respond to a call involving Alyssa Lopez?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you arrived on the scene, what occurred?
When I arrived on scene, I walked up to the house, knocked on the door. Alyssa came to the door. She told me that she had been in an altercation at a house that was 1411. I think initially she said North Bellevue, and then later on it turned to South Bellevue. When she described to me what happened, she said that she was surrounded by a group of people with her ex there, I believe is what she said. I would have to reference my report really quick. He was there with a group of people. The people ganged up around her. She said she swung at them, and then they all started to beat her up, and then she asked for an ambulance to be called, and I called an ambulance.
When she referred to her ex, did she refer to him as her baby daddy?
Yes, ma'am.
And did she indicate if he was involved in the altercation?
I could never get that specifically out of her. After I told her it sounded to more like a mutual combat situation to me, she got very irritated, and then she refused to really elaborate on the situation after that.
Okay. And did she appear to be intoxicated when you were speaking with her?
I got the impression that she was, and just to confirm my suspicions, I asked the paramedics on scene if they thought she was as well, and they also agreed that she could possibly be.
Okay. Now, once in the ambulance, did she continue to talk about hitting people and people hitting her?
Yes, she did. And then she even started to say that she said something to the effect of, Officer Short is too close to this case and I would like to speak to a supervisor because there's a conflict of interest. Then I tried to explain to her that I wasn't Officer Short, but we couldn't get past that point. So then I ended up calling the supervisor for her.
Okay. Was anybody arrested on this call?
No, ma'am.
Okay, pass the witness.
Ms. Kincaid?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just to clarify, can you tell me again what the date of this incident was?
December 23rd, I believe, 2023.
Okay, and as a result of your contact with Miss Lopez, nobody was arrested?
Correct.
Okay, do you know if she was transported by the ambulance or if she was cleared there on scene?
She was cleared on scene. She didn't like what my supervisor told her about how I wasn't Officer Short, and that she could speak to me about the incident that had occurred. Then she refused to get out of the ambulance, and then we finally got her to get out of the ambulance, and then she just refused to speak to everybody in general there. So she just ended up essentially leaving the ambulance AMA, and then we were told to leave the scene as well.
Okay, thank you. I'll pass the witness.
Okay, quickly, I want to clear up. Ms. Gutierrez, I thought you talked about an incident on December 1st, and I thought Officer Watring said it was December 23rd.
Yes, Your Honor, I have that down to clear up on redirect. I believe the incident was December 1st of 2023.
Okay, all right, let's just
Okay,
keep.
I'm sorry. I was confused. My bad.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure everybody was on the same page. So, all right, Mr. McClendon, do you have questions for Officer Watring?
Yes, sir. Officer Watring, where did you accost Alyssa at in this incident?
Objection form, he said a cost.
Yeah.
Come up on. Where did you meet her at, Alyssa?
At her grandmother's house.
Do you have that address ready?
Give me 1 second to pull up my report.
Did Alyssa ever express to you that night that her ex or baby daddy, however she referred to him, actually did anything to her?
When I initially got there, she told me that he had broke her hand. When I further tried to clarify that later, that's when she started saying there was other people involved, and then I couldn't clarify who had actually hit her hand.
Okay. Did she clarify that night whether it was the night that her hand was broken?
No, she was very uncooperative once I told her it sounded like a mutual combat situation.
Okay. When you met with her, did you nope, that's not gonna be a good question. I apologize, Judge. And you said that she refused medical service after she spoke with your sergeant?
Yes.
Was there any follow-up done with her?
Not by me.
Okay. On the night in question, did you receive or have you any knowledge of a call where she was at a toot and totem and was assaulted again?
If there was,
I'm sorry, what?
I'm objecting to facts, not in evidence. Mr. McClendon is now asking about what sounds like a separate incident.
Overrule. If Ms. Officer Watring, if you know anything about this, you can answer. If you don't, then you don't.
I don't know anything about another call that night with her.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay. Did you ever speak with me or have reason to that night?
No, sir.
Okay. No further questions.
Mr. Ingram?
No questions.
All right, any follow-ups for Officer Watring?
Just on the date, Your Honor. Officer Watring, what was the date of your interaction with Alyssa that you just testified about?
Give me just a second to reference my report again. 12/1.
Pass the
December
witness.
1st, 2023.
Thank you. Pass the witness.
Anyone else? All right, may Officer Watring be excused?
No objection.
All right, Ms. Bailey, if you would please raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right, thank you. Ms. Gutierrez, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Amy, who do you work for?
The Texas Department of Family and Protective Services.
And what do you do for them?
I'm an investigator.
And were you assigned to the children Jolise King and Jonathan McClendon?
Yes.
Okay, and who is their mother?
Alyssa Lopez,
And who is their father?
Jonathan McClendon,
What is the date that the intake came in?
December 13th, 2023.
And did you have? I'm sorry? Thank you. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't an objection, Your Honor. I'll continue. Amy, did you have prior contact with the McClendon Lopez family? Briefly, what did that investigation involve?
That investigation was due to the police being called out due to an incident of possible domestic violence, but it was a fight between some young male individuals and a neighbor.
Okay, but it sounds like that intake led you to the home of Mr. McClendon, is that correct?
Correct.
And so did you have an opportunity to view the children, Jolise King and Jonathan, in the summer?
I did.
And so you know what they look like, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so when did this most recent intake come in?
December 13th, 2023.
And what were the intake allegations?
That the children were left home alone unsupervised, and that 2 of the children were in the street.
And based on that intake, did you immediately travel to the residence of Jonathan McClendon?
Yes.
And was that on Royce?
Yes,
And did you interview Miss Elisa Lopez?
I did.
And what did she state about the allegations?
She stated that she and Mr. McClendon had got into a domestic violence incident, that he had grabbed her by her jacket and swung her around. And so to keep it from escalating, she had left the residence.
Okay. Did she indicate that she had received a call from law enforcement as well about her children being left alone?
Yes.
And did she state that she had been trying to get back to the house?
Yes.
Did she make additional statements about any domestic violence by Jonathan McClendon against her?
Yes.
What did she state?
She stated that approximately a week before, that he had broke her hand by slamming it in a door.
And did you observe her hand to be injured?
Yes.
And what did she next state about having moved back into the home with Mr. McClendon?
She stated that Mr. McClendon was not residing in the home, that he was residing with a girlfriend, and that she and the children had moved back into the home.
Okay. Now, when you arrived on the scene, did you see the 3 children there?
Not at that point.
Okay. At what point did you have a chance to see the children?
After I spoke to Mr. McClendon and Miss Lopez, I was taken to the home where the children were located.
And did you recognize the children from the case before?
Yes.
And were they Jolise King and Jonathan?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you attempted to speak to Mr. McClendon, did he decline?
He declined to review any paperwork from the department, but he did briefly make a statement about what occurred that night.
Okay. Now, in speaking with Miss Lopez, did you speak with her about any possible family placement for the children?
I did.
And was that an attempt by the department to evaluate the case for a safety plan with a parent-child safety placement?
Yes.
And a parent-child safety placement, is that where the children are placed in a different home from the parents?
Yes.
And at that time, were there no appropriate relatives available for such a placement.
Correct.
In addition to that, did the department determine that that type of placement would not mitigate the dangers being presented to the children?
Yes.
And in your investigation, did you confirm the intake allegations that the children were indeed left alone?
Yes.
Now, based on the facts and all the testimony today, did you believe that there was an immediate danger to the physical health or safety of the children?
Yes.
And would a kick-out order or an order for one of the parents to leave the home have alleviated the department's concerns?
No, because the allegations were against both parents.
Okay. And to summarize, the allegations were both for domestic violence and neglect and the children being left alone. Is that correct?
Correct.
Were you present for the ex parte hearing in this case?
Yes.
And at that ex parte hearing, did Ms. Lopez state that she knowingly left the children alone in the home on her own?
She did. She stated that she believed that Mr. McClendon was home, but that she should have taken that responsibility to go look before she left.
Okay. But does that clear up the concern that the department has with the family?
No.
Do you also believe that the domestic violence that each parent, or rather the domestic violence testimony on each parent presents a risk and danger to the children?
Yes.
What reasonable efforts did the department make to avoid removal?
I asked for if there was a viable person that could supervise or that the kids could be placed with. The person that Ms. Lopez provided was not approved.
In addition to that, was there a prior order to participate?
Yes.
Okay. And reasonable efforts since removal, does that include facilitating visitation for the parents with the children?
Yes.
Does it also include continuing to attempt to engage the parents?
Yes.
Are we asking that both parents' hair follicle and urinalysis drug screen?
Yes.
Okay. And where are the children currently placed?
Jolise is in an emergency shelter here in Amarillo. King and Jonathan are in separate foster homes in Lubbock.
Is there a pending home study?
Yes, ma'am.
And who is that on?
Mr. McClendon's aunt, Peggy Newman.
What is the status of that home study right now?
The last that I was informed was that they were having the meeting with Miss Newman on, I believe it was January 5th. But as to my knowledge, there has not been anything received, a completed home study at this time.
Are we asking the court to order separate visits for Mr. McClendon and Ms. Lopez?
Yes.
Is that due to the evidence of violence by each one of them?
Yes.
Pass the witness.
All right, thank you. Ms. Bailey, you said that on this date in question on the 13th of December, that Mr. McClendon refused to sign paperwork, but he did make a statement concerning the allegations. What was his statement?
He stated that he was in the back bedroom and Alyssa had come in there and started assaulting him. So he left that bedroom, went into another bedroom, and ultimately ended up climbing out of the bedroom window to get out of the house to keep things from escalating.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, Ms. Kincaid, questions?
Thank you, Your Honor. On the night, December the 13th, did you go over the removal paperwork with Ms. Lopez?
Not that night, not at the
Okay.
scene.
Okay. Did you go over the parents' rights forms with her?
I did,
Okay. Did she express an understanding of those forms?
yes,
Okay. And was she cooperative in speaking with you that evening?
yes.
Okay. And you may have testified to this already, but did you observe any injuries on her?
I observed her hand that appeared to have injuries.
Okay. And what was her demeanor? Was she calm, upset?
She was upset.
Okay. And was she able to communicate with you that night what her version of the story was?
Yes,
Okay. And on that night, did she report to you anybody besides her brother that could supervise or take care of the children?
no, not initially. After I spoke to Mr. McClendon and Miss Lopez, and explained to them that the decision had been made to remove the children, that is when Mr. McClendon asked me to look at his aunt, but did not have a phone number, but gave me his mother's phone number as someone I could contact to get the aunt's phone number.
Okay. And did you reach out to Mr. McClendon's mom?
Not that night.
Okay. So it was later.
Yes, we did not leave the home until after 11:30 that night.
Okay. Thank you. I'll pass witness.
All right, Mr. McClendon, questions for Ms. Bailey?
Miss Bailey, isn't it true that Alyssa was told that she would be signing the receiving of the rights form so that her children would not be leaving, so that nothing would happen with her children in replacement?
No, sir.
Okay. Has she recounted the events of the night for you since that night?
She did.
Might I ask what changes she made to those statements?
Yes, 2 days later, she told me that she had been drinking and that she had left the home. She assumed that you were in the home and that she did not go verify that before she left.
Did she tell you that night why she knew I was gone? Did she give you a specific reason?
On the 13th?
Mhm.
That you had assaulted her, grabbed her by the collar, was flinging her around the home.
Let
And that's
me
why she left.
reiterate that. On the night, the day in question, 2 days later, when she recounted these events, did she give you a specific reason as to why she knew I wasn't home when she left those children alone?
Objection, Your Honor. I think that's facts, not in evidence.
Sustained.
The way she presented it was that she did not know for a fact that you were not in the home. She assumed that you were in the home and she did not go check to verify before she left.
Okay. The night of December 13th, according to your knowledge, after the police made contact with Alyssa and I, how long did it take you to arrive?
I do not know. I don't know what time y'all arrived.
Could we?
I know that when I arrived, Mr. Detective Hodges was speaking with you.
Do you know what time that was?
It was around 8:30.
Is that documented anywhere where we could see?
Your Honor, objection form?
I'm not sure I understood his question.
Is that documented anywhere that she showed up at 8:30?
That's a question. You can answer that, Ms. Bailey.
I don't know that I documented the exact time that I arrived on scene.
I did. And I'm asking is it not closer to 4 hours from the time I was contacted from the police till you showed up?
Objection, Your Honor. She's already testified. She doesn't know what time of police and law enforcement arrived.
Sustained.
Okay. At least wanted to pose it. Thank you for that opportunity. What actual evidence do you have other than the appearance of injuries that I am violent or domestically violent?
The numerous police call outs, police reports, the allegations that Alyssa has made in the past.
Okay, to your knowledge, do either of the parties, Alyssa or I, have any charges resulting from these claims?
Between the two of you,
Yes, ma'am.
I believe Alyssa does.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. In your professional opinion, never mind, I won't ask that question. I'll strike that myself. Has she a third time recounted her story to you, reclarifying certain untruths that she told in the statement that night? Specifically after our first meeting? With the kids?
I'm not sure what you're,
Okay, I'll reform. After our first visitation with the kids, did Alyssa call you and recount her story again from that night, reclarifying untruths that she told?
Objection, compound question.
Sustained. Yeah. Ms. Bailey, has she contacted again about what went on that night after the first visitation? I think that's where he's headed.
okay, we have had conversations and she reiterated again that she was the one that left the children alone. That she believes that Mr. McClendon had left before she did, but she did not go check to make sure he was in the home before she left.
Did Alyssa tell you during this conversation that when I normally hide from her or the police, as was stated that night, that I always make myself known when she re-enters the home, and that's how she knew I was gone? Did she state that to you on that third call after our visitation with the children?
I do not recall that.
Okay. Did you ever ask me prior to the removal papers being discussed with me? Did you ever ask me of a viable placement for the children?
No, I did not.
Were you aware that one was on the scene that night?
No,
And Miss Amy, did you ever actually see the fact that the children were left at home alone?
I'm sorry. Can you state that again?
Did you ever actually see the fact that our children were left at home alone?
I did not. By the time I got there, the police were there.
Do you know where our children were at the time you got there?
No, I just knew that they were with a neighbor, but I didn't know which one.
Okay, did you know that what police officer did you speak with when you arrived?
Let me look. It was Officer DeWitt.
Officer DeWitt. Okay, I hadn't heard his name spoken today at all. Did you speak with officers that witnessed my children at the neighbors before you arrived?
When I arrived, Officer DeWitt told me that Detective Hodges was speaking with you and that I could wait in my car until he was done with you and Alyssa.
So you never spoke with the officer the night that actually witnessed my children across the street at the neighbors before you arrived?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to form. He hasn't identified what officer that would be.
I don't think he can. Amy, did you talk to any of the officers that said they saw the children at the neighbor's house?
I did not. I spoke to Detective Hodges once he was done speaking with
Okay.
the parents.
Okay, let's move on, Mr. McClendon.
Yes, sir. One said officer that we just spoke with just said that he saw the children next door at the neighbor's house. And I'd asked him if he actually saw them outside of my home before such. That's my line of questioning.
Well, that's not a question. That's not a question.
I'm
There's
not
no
there
question.
yet.
There's no question in there.
I'm not there yet.
We'll
So with
get to
that
it.
being
Get
said,
to it.
Miss Amy, do you know that the only officer to had made a statement that he witnessed my children across the street at the neighbors, never saw them home alone?
Your Honor, I'm gonna object to hearsay. He's not identified that officer, and it sounds like he's trying to backdoor hearsay in for a different officer.
Sustained.
So did you know that Officer Powell was the one that made contact with my children that night?
No, sir, I didn't know which officer made contact with the children.
Do you know which officer made a call to CPI investigations to report the matter?
Detective Hodges, from my knowledge.
Okay. Directly different from what was said. All right.
No sidebar comments, Mr. McClendon, or I'll cut you off.
Yes, sir. To your knowledge, was there anyone else on the scene that night when you arrived besides Alyssa, myself, and law enforcement?
I believe her brother was on scene.
Can I ask how you were sure of his relation to her?
Detective Hodges told me.
So Detective Hodges did not tell you that that was my brother that was on the scene.
Your Honor, I'm gonna object to form.
I'm asking, was she
Don't
informed that it
interrupt,
was?
Mr. McClendon. Let me rule before you talk over me, please.
Yes, sir.
That's overruled. Now you can go ahead.
Amy, you can answer the question.
What was the question?
So Officer Hodges or Sergeant Hodges did not tell you that that individual was my brother on the scene that night.
No, it was my understanding it was Alyssa's brother that was in the black pickup.
So could this have been the confusion with there not being a viable placement found for the children that night?
Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
No.
Is that the reason you felt like there was no one there for the kids to be placed with, because you were misinformed?
I possibly, but I went with the information that I had.
Okay, no further questions.
Mr. Ingram,
No questions.
anyone have follow-ups for Miss Bailey? We'll start with you, Miss Gutierrez.
Thank you, Your Honor. Miss Bailey, did Mr. McClendon refuse to speak with you during your visit to the home on that night?
Objection, asked and answered.
Overruled.
He spoke with me briefly.
And did he refuse to sign the 3010 form?
He did.
Objection, I don't know what the 3010 form is.
That's a good objection. He doesn't know what that is.
I can ask her to explain. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
Bailey, can you explain what the 3010 form is?
It is the notification of rights. And I tried to go over that form with him, explaining that he had the right to obtain an attorney prior to speaking to me. He had the right to record our conversation. I asked him to look over it. He told me he was not going to look at any paperwork from the department, and he was not going to sign anything, that he wanted to talk about what occurred that night.
Okay. Ask the witness.
Ms. Kincaid, follow-up questions?
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. McClendon, any follow-up questions?
Yes, Miss Amy, is it not true that that night I read, what actually occurred is that I read the first 3 rights to you and stated those as a reason for not signing the paperwork or continuing the conversation?
You said that you did not want to review any paperwork and you were not going to sign anything for the department.
I'll reiterate.
Was it?
No, asked and answered.
That's asked and answered. You move on, Mr. McClendon.
All right, let me figure out how to ask this one then. Did I read the first 3 rights to you that night when you handed me the paper?
No, you did not.
did I give you any reason at all for saying that I was not gonna sign the paperwork for the department?
You said that you knew your rights and you did not want to sign anything for the department.
Okay, no further questions.
All right, any follow-ups, Mr. Ingram? Hello?
No questions.
Okay. All right, then, if there's nothing further, then Ms. Gutierrez, do you have any other witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor, the department calls Nurti Angraini.
All right, Ms. Angraini, and I apologize, I probably just butchered your name. If you could please unmute.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. If you could spell your first and last name for us to be sure we have it correct.
My first name is Nurti and my last name is Angraini.
Okay,
Yes.
so it just says we have you. Okay, that's good enough.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. All right, if you would, ma'am, please raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right, thank you. Ms. Gutierrez?
Thank you, Your Honor. Nurti, you supervised a visit for the parents and the children on December 27th, 2023. Is that correct?
Yes, correct me.
And following that visit, did you have a conversation with 4-year-old Jolise?
Yes, prior to the on the way to Lubbock. Yes.
And did he make a statement of or an outcry of abuse or neglect?
Yes.
What did he state?
He said we were scared. We were alone. We were out on the street yelling on the street, and we are hungry. That's what he said.
And additionally, did he make any statements regarding his father's treatment of his mother?
Yes.
What did he state?
He said my father is strong, and he beat up my mom. That's what he said.
Pass the witness.
Ms. Kincaid?
No questions, Your Honor.
Mr. McClendon?
Yes, Ms. Nurti, do you have any audio documentation of said comment from Jolise?
No. No.
Do you have any video corroboration of said comment from Jolise?
No.
Do you have any report incident documented with your superiors of said comment from Jolise?
Yes. I report to my supervisor for that.
Okay. Is there at a future time a date I might be privileged to such documentation?
She can't answer that. That's a legal question.
Ms. Nurti, will you provide me with a copy of that documentation?
She can't answer that. That's a legal question. That's for the court to decide, not her.
Oh, I'm sorry, Judge. I was under the impression that was public knowledge. I'm sorry.
Well,
Public
that's why I
said-
stressed before. Excuse me. That's why I stressed before, and I'll stress again, you might want to consider applying for a court-appointed attorney because I can't give you legal advice.
Yes, sir, Judge. I'm just doing my apprenticeship right now. I'll probably take the bar at some point, but I'm trying. I apologize. Are there any other concerns or issues that you have with the said treatment of my child, Jolise?
You mean in the placement?
Period.
Your
Sorry,
Honor,
can
I'm
you-
going to object and ask that he be more specific with that question.
Are there any of your own personal specific concerns that you have toward his safety in the treatment and his treatment by me?
I don't understand. I'm so sorry.
Are you concerned for his safety on my part?
Oh, yes.
And how specifically?
For this, according to his statement that he was scared of you and he said that you beat him up. you beat his mom. That's what my concern.
Did he ever say I hit him?
He said that, yes.
And you documented that as well?
Yes.
Okay. No further questions.
All right, Mr. Egram.
No questions.
Ms. Kincaid, did I skip you again?
I don't, you may have skipped me, but I do have a couple of questions in any event.
Okay, go ahead.
Since the removal, has Miss Lopez been getting her visitations?
Yes, ma'am.
Has she indicated a willingness to you to work services?
Oh, yes.
And has she reported to you that she's working on employment and some other things as we speak?
Yes, she reported to me that she got a job at Amazon starting on the 24th of this month.
Okay.
Yes.
And so does it seem to you, I know this case is new, but does it seem to you like Miss Lopez is willing to do whatever it takes to demonstrate to the department that she can alleviate the reasons for removal?
She was willing, yes, to do services. Correct.
Okay, thank you. I'll pass witness.
Okay, anyone else have further questions for this witness?
Do you have
Yes,
a couple question?
One
Oh,
at a time.
I'm sorry, I don't know if it's my turn or Mr. McClendon's turn. Your
Go
Honor.
ahead, Ms. Gutierrez.
Thank you, Your Honor. Nifty, is St. Francis willing to provide transportation for Miss Lopez to visit her children?
Yes, ma'am. Right.
And to your knowledge, is Miss Lopez still residing with Mr. McClendon?
That's what I believe, that she is still with him.
Okay, and that if that's changed, then you wouldn't know it, correct?
Yes, I don't.
Okay, pass the witness.
All right, Ms. Kincaid, any follow-ups?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. McClendon, follow-ups?
Nerthy, does it seem to you that I am willing to do whatever it takes to alleviate the concerns for removal?
You did not, as far as I understand about you, Mr. McClendon, you kind of denied what I'm trying to explain to you about the paperwork and all that. And
But I denied. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, you just did not want to sign the paperwork, and and you think that I cannot explain to you what you want to know about stuff, and you think that you are not willing to work on services because you think that it was all a lie.
Have I expressed this to you that I am unwilling to work services?
Yes.
When did I express this to you?
When we had a meeting that we're not supposed to have, because I was having a meeting with Alisa, Miss Lopez, but you showed up anyway.
So I told you at that. Oh yeah, I can't ask that again. So I didn't tell you that I was willing to work services in that meeting under recording.
Yeah, you're not. You did not. You said you wanted to if I have to, but I don't want it to right now. 40% rock and roll. But you're not showing that you're willing to.
Have I not made several calls to you requesting referrals for parenting classes and anger management?
No, sir. You said that I don't have an obligation to answer your text message and call.
Okay, this is gonna get to, I hope not seem too petty, Judge, but did I not say to you that I didn't have an obligation to cull your personal concerns for me, only to work through the court?
You said you did not have an obligation to reply on what we need to work on.
Oh, that wasn't my question. Did I not inform you that?
No, that was your, she's answered your question. Move on.
That wasn't my question.
All right. One more sidebar remark, Mr. McClendon. I am getting tired of having to admonish you. I've had just about all I can take.
Do you have any audio documentation that would prove your claims that I said I would not work services because I had to explain, or I would not elect to explain things to me?
No, I don't, but I'm under oath and I remember what you said to me.
Ma'am, let's just answer the question, yes and no, when you can.
No, ma'am. No, sir.
Do you have any video documentation of our meeting that day at all?
No.
Okay, no further questions.
Mr. Ingram.
No questions.
All right, then, can she be excused, Ms. Gutierrez?
Yes, Your Honor, she can be excused.
All right, Ms. Gutierrez, any other witnesses?
No other witnesses, Your Honor. The department rests, but I reserve making some requests in closing.
Okay. All right, Ms. Kincaid, witnesses.
Your Honor, I'll try my very best to keep it brief. I'd like to call Ms. Lopez.
Okay. Ms. Lopez, if you'd unmute, please. Thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
ma'am. If you'd raise your right hand, do you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Ms. Kincaid.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. At the beginning of this hearing, I know it was some time ago, there was an inquiry as to Native American status. Can you explain to the court any Native American heritage or status that you believe the children have?
Apache and Comanche.
Okay, do you know of any actual tribes that the children are members of?
I do not. I've been trying to get that information from my mother, but that has been something else.
Okay, are you yourself a member of a tribe?
No, but I am trying to see how I can go about on getting a DNA test to prove otherwise.
Okay, so we'll move along from that. There's been some testimony that I think you may have heard that says that you and Mr. McClendon are still living together. Did you hear that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, are you two residing in the same house now?
No, I stay back at my apartment where I originally left from to go back to that address due to a shooting that happened.
Okay, so you had an apartment whenever you and Mr. McClendon split up, okay, right?
I still have, well, no, from the last previous case that was opened up on us, it was deemed by the judge that if this was going to be an ongoing occurrence with the domestic violence, it would be in the best kids' interest for us to split up. So while they were in Chicago, I
Okay,
had gotten
just
an
hang
apartment.
on. I'll get us where we need to go if you'll just answer the questions that I ask you, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so this summer you got a separate apartment whenever you and Mr. McClendon separated, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and while you were residing at that apartment, there was a shooting that happened outside of that apartment, is that correct?
Well, they shot at my apartment.
Okay, so
but it
as
had nothing to do with me.
All right, now, ma'am, I want to just start, let's start off on the right foot. Please just answer the question you're asked. Don't keep embellishing because that messes it up. We can't hear each other talking over each other. So I'm not getting on you, but it'll make it go easier for all these lawyers if y'all don't talk over each other.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Lopez, if you'll let me, I'll get the answers to the court and to the other parties if you'll just answer the questions that I ask you, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And I understand you're nervous. All right, so there was a shooting outside of your apartment.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I hate to interrupt. I've got to take this call real quick.
I think we're all back, Judge.
Okay. All right. Then, Ms. Kincaid, you can continue.
Thank you. So after the shooting, you were concerned for your safety and your children's safety. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you had a discussion with Mr. McClendon and he agreed to allow you to stay at his house while you figured out your next steps and what you needed to do to make sure you and the kids were safe. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And in addition to the shooting, there were windows knocked out of the apartment. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so at the time, you thought the safest thing for you to do would be to move into the house with Mr. McClendon. Is that correct?
No, Mr. McClendon was not living there.
Okay. And where was he staying at the time?
With whoever he was claiming he was staying with.
Okay. And I think the night of the incident has been gone over enough times that we don't need to do that. But since this case has been opened and is pending, you have gotten employment. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you've stayed in contact with your caseworker. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you have been very diligent in asking to begin working your services. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I also went and got a mental evaluation done.
Okay, and so you are ready, willing, and able to do anything and everything you can to get the kiddos back to you as soon as possible. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and there's something that you wanted to explain to the judge, and I know it's delicate for you to discuss, but you yourself were a part of the foster care system. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that is something that has been traumatic for you. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And as a result of that, you have some really deep concerns about your children being placed in foster care. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And this court, and I'm sure everyone here is aware that there has been a recent arrest of a member of St. Francis. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you want to be sure that your children are not potentially subject to any kind of victimization while they're in foster care. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so you're hoping that the children be placed with Miss Peggy Newman. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that is your wish. You're in agreement with the pending home study that she would be an appropriate placement for them.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Gutierrez?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Lopez, do you agree to provide your new address to Nursey?
Yes, she already has my apartment address.
Okay, so that's right. You testified just now that it's the same apartment as before. Okay. And do you agree to provide the results of your mental evaluation to Nursey?
Yes, my lawyer also has a copy of it.
Who was that evaluation done by?
TPC.
And do you know what type of evaluation it was?
Psychiatric or psychological.
Okay, so is it fair to say you're not entirely sure what type of eval it was?
All I know was I called and asked for a mental evaluation. The doctor called me back and I had my evaluation with him. And he stated that I do not need, I was denied for any kind of craziness.
Okay, I'm going to object to hearsay to that portion of your answer.
Okay, I think
Okay.
she's saying she's not exactly sure what it was, so obviously Ms. Kincaid has a copy, so we can get to the bottom of that.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll move on. Ms. Lopez, what is your relationship with Mr. McClendon?
As of our last case, really, we've been co-parenting and trying to work on us from different homes, but that's not working, so we've just been separated.
And I think there was testimony during the case that he referred to you as his wife. Are you guys indeed married?
No, ma'am, we're common law married.
Do you recall approximately when you guys became common law married?
No, but I know we were together February 18th of 2017.
Okay. Do you believe that you can get your children back on your own?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you believe that you can do that without Mr. McClendon's help?
Yes, ma'am.
And regarding your statements about Indian ancestry, what type of DNA test do you plan to take? Is it just like a commercial one, or is it specific to a tribe?
It's specific. I can actually send that over to my lawyer and she can send it over to y'all guys, but I have to pay for it in order for me to get that DNA test. So I was going to see if it can get court ordered.
When you say get it court ordered, do you mean for somebody else to pay for?
Yes, ma'am, as I'm just starting my employment with Amazon on the 24th of this month.
Now, do you understand that Indian heritage doesn't necessarily mean tribal membership?
No, I'm not understanding of that.
Okay. If you do become an Indian tribal member, will you inform your attorney immediately?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Now, Ms. Lopez, I'm sure it's been hard to hear some of the testimony that has happened today.
Yeah.
How did it feel to hear that Jolise had made those statements about Mr. McClendon hurting you?
It hurt me.
Pass the witness.
All right, Mr. McClendon, do you have questions for Ms. Lopez?
Yes, sir, I do.
And you tread lightly here, sir. This is not for you two to start arguing with each other, so just tread very lightly.
Yes, sir. You okay, Alyssa?
Yeah, I'm good.
You need me to give you a second before I go on?
No, I'm okay.
Alyssa, do you feel intimidated by me?
Not at all.
Will you be answering these questions today that I asked you on your own volition without any feelings of intimidation?
Yes.
Do you understand the severity of perjuring?
All right, look, that's,
Your Honor, she's been sworn.
I know she's been sworn, and you're just about to step over the line one more time, Mr. McClendon. You do not badger this woman in any respect.
Alyssa, I apologize if I offended you in any way. Do you feel like I'm overstepping my bounds by asking you that?
No.
Okay. With that being said, do you agree with the allegations of domestic violence and the implication they have on the placement of our children?
Your Honor,
No.
compound question.
That's clear enough. You can answer it if you choose to, Ms. Lopez.
No.
Do you feel that it is the safest course of action and of greatest importance for the kid's safety and well-being that you go about reunifying yourself with them without my help?
If that's what needs to be done, I mean, yeah.
Okay. Do you feel like I am willing to do whatever it takes to reunify myself with my kids?
Your
Objection.
Honor, speculation.
That calls for speculation. She can't decide what you're willing to do.
Have I expressed willingness to go along with family-based plans and services?
Yes, you have asked for referrals along with me.
Let's clarify, Mr. McClendon, we're way past family-based services. I understand what you're saying, that you're willing to work services, but we're beyond the family-based services case. It's now going to be under a court, not just by an agreement with family-based services. So just be sure we're clear on that.
Okay, sir. Alyssa, have I expressed, in your professional opinion, have I expressed willingness to do whatever the court will expect of me to reunify myself with the children?
Yes, because you
Action,
kicked me out of your house.
she's not a professional of anything.
Overrule. Yeah, professional opinion. I agree with that, but she's answered the question.
So I can answer that?
I think you did already. It's just not a professional opinion because you haven't been qualified as an expert. Go ahead, move on.
Okay.
Mr.
Okay, Ms. Alyssa, according to what you expect from the person parenting or supervising your children, have I expressed willingness to do whatever it takes to reunify myself with the children?
Yes, after they were removed.
Do you feel like I was, or are you saying that I have been unwilling to cooperate previous to the removal?
With the departments in, you were uncooperative, but you were maintaining to care for them on your own.
Okay. Were you, do you remember December 27th, a meeting that we had with NERTI?
Yes.
Do you remember in that meeting, let me ask that a different way. In that meeting, did I request services and referrals to do whatever it takes to reunify myself with the children?
Yes.
In that meeting, did I refuse to answer personal questions that were being posed as opposed to questions about our children's placement?
Can you say that again?
In that meeting, did I refuse to answer personal questions that were being posed as opposed to questions that dealt with our children's safety and placement?
Your Honor, I'm
Yes.
gonna object to form. I don't feel like that question is very clear.
Well, it's compound question. Break it up. Ask about
Okay.
personal versus the children, and maybe she can answer that.
Do you remember me being asked personal questions that I refused to answer that day during the meeting with Nerty?
Yes.
Do you remember that I denied answering those personal questions as opposed to anything that had to do with the children?
Now, can you reiterate that one for me?
Okay, I'm saying, when I was asked those personal questions, did I refuse on the grounds that we were there to speak about the children's placement?
No.
Okay. All right. At any rate, in lieu of my answer to those personal questions, was I then refused referrals for services of any kind to just better myself for the children?
Yes.
Do you corroborate Jolice's statements that I'm stronger and beat up his mother?
Kind of.
Okay. Can I ask you to clarify? Kind of. That's.
There has
It-
been some incidents that I have started where he's seen it, but he's not seeing me as the aggressor. So it has painted you to be a monster.
We're not gonna go that far.
You asked the question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I just don't want it. I didn't know if that was something we should lean over into what it looked like. I just wanted it to be clear.
Move
The
on.
facts of.
Move on with more questions.
All right. So listen. Are you saying that I am the aggressor? Or are you leaving that neutral?
Objection, compound question.
Sustained.
Are you saying that I am the aggressor in those few instances you spoke of?
No.
Are you saying that you are the aggressor in those instances that you spoke of?
Your Honor, I'm going to object and request clarification. He's referring to those incidents you spoke of. However, I'm not clear what incidents they're speaking on.
The incidents okay, I'm sorry.
We've spoke about a lot of incidents today, so. Ms. Lopez, have you ever been physically aggressive to Mr. McClendon?
Yes, sir, I have.
Has Mr. McClendon ever been physically aggressive to you?
Yes, sir, he has. It goes
Okay,
both ways.
that kind of clears it up. Let's kind of move on, Mr. McClendon.
I'm at a loss. Do you have in the event that my rights, possibly restored, do you have any do you have any problem with the children being in my custody?
Not at all, as long as I'm not around.
Why wouldn't you need to be around? Why don't you want yourself to be around while they're in my custody?
I feel as I need to get help on my anger towards men.
Okay. Okay, so that I've done put you through enough. No further questions.
All right, Mr. Ingram, questions?
No questions.
All right, Ms. Kincaid, follow up.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Kincaid, did you have any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor, rest.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ingram, do you have witnesses?
No witnesses.
All right, Mr. McClendon, do you have witnesses?
No, sir, no witnesses.
All right, is there anything else you want to tell me? You have the right to testify on your own behalf since you're not represented by an attorney.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if you raise your right hand, then please, sir. You swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, now you can kind of without not just rambling, you can tell me anything you want to tell me that you haven't already told me today.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Today I want to testify to my own character. I want to say that willingly I am going to admit to the boisterous and both arrogant and aggravating demeanor that I have held in the past. But as I spoke with the court in our first hearing on the 15th, or in our last hearing, let's just say that I am totally respective of the views that have been shed light now that weren't in. As with any others, I've held certain resentments from misunderstandings in my childhood versus I also was a part of the system myself, CPS, went through Quest Hospital, the evaluations and everything else. So I am not going to sit here and act like any type of saint. What I will say is that I've done my greatest and I've given my full effort toward a rehabilitation of what I'm going to call manhood and responsibility. These are things that I did not receive, and this is not an excuse, but these are things that I did not receive as an upbringing. These are things I ran out into the world to try and find and build for myself, which is why I created my family. I want to say to the court that I respect every light that has been shed on my nature and my demeanor, my unwillingness to cooperate in previous times. And I want to say that is absolutely going to be different now. Afforded the opportunity, I am going to do each and every single thing it takes to reunify myself with my children. And I'm going to do each and everything it takes to rectify the turmoil that I've put my family through, especially Alyssa. With that being said, I would ask the court to please consider all of the concerns that I have made, both with you and Judge Gleason. And that's all I have to ask is that, you do this, you're way more equipped to handle this than I. If you would just take those things in consideration and, consider previous instances with me from now, I would very much appreciate it.
Okay, is that it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I appreciate your candor. I really do. All right, Ms. Gutierrez, do you have questions?
Yes, Your Honor. I have a couple more questions specific to ICWA for Mr. McClendon.
Okay.
Mr. McClendon, do you understand that DNA test does not necessarily mean tribal membership?
Yes, ma'am.
And have you applied to be a member of any tribe?
No, ma'am.
Do you have a tribal membership card specific to you? That was my question.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know how those things go. This is something that I've never had to consider before. It was only ever brought to my attention when my children were first investigated by CPS. So I've only just now started to look into where my tribal association actually is. I do know of the fact that I am a part of a tribe. I just don't know how to get you the information, where the card is, how to register for it, any of that.
And Mr. McClendon, can you explain to me how you know you're a member of a tribe?
Well, we had an incident with my cousin's child, my mother's sister's son, and same type of ordeal right here. We ended up relocating the child to a Navajo resort in New Mexico, where we found out of all of our affiliation with that resort. We're now in proceedings in court over some dues they owe us. That's how I know.
Okay, but you yourself have not applied for tribal membership, correct?
No, and have not privileged to the fact of whether my parents are or not.
Mr. McClendon, I will agree with you that ICWA is complicated, so bear with me through these questions.
Yes, ma'am.
If you do become a member of a tribe, if you become a member of a tribe, would you please inform the court and your caseworker immediately? Can you agree to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, I passed the witness.
All right, thank you. Ms. Kincaid, questions?
No questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Ingram.
No questions.
All right, then, Mr. McClendon, you testified that you didn't have any other witnesses to call today, did you?
No, sir.
Okay, all right. Then
Your
does,
Honor, I apologize. Go ahead.
does everyone rest and close?
I do have one rebuttal witness, very briefly, Your Honor.
Okay,
And the department calls Venus Mincy as its witness.
all right, ma'am, if you'd raise your right hand, you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez.
Thank you, Your Honor. Venus, there was testimony today that at least one parent in this case requested to start working services prior to the adversary. Is that correct?
Correct.
And were you aware of that request?
I was.
Okay, and it was St. Francis's position for parents not to start working services until after the adversary hearing. Is that correct?
Correct. That is our normal procedure.
Can you please explain the reasoning behind that?
Sure. Well, the case is not technically with St. Francis until after the adversary hearing. So all point of contact would need to stay with the department. So if a family plan of service or anything like that is signed, then the point of contact becomes St. Francis. And so there's a little bit of issues with that. Also, since the case is not technically ours, we would need to look at ways how we would pay for services for our clients.
Okay, now that if the judge grants the department temporary managing conservatorship for that to continue, is St. Francis now prepared to help the family with determining what services should be done, setting up payment, and giving them contact information for those services?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Pass the witness.
All right. Ms. Kincaid,
No questions.
Mr. McClendon, any questions for Ms. Mincy?
No questions.
All right, Mr. Ingram.
No questions.
All right, let me just ask Ms. Mincy, if the court does grant the department's request and order drug testing, if the parents don't have transportation, is that something St. Francis can arrange?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. Okay, then, Mr. Ingram, recommendations.
Your Honor, I believe it to be in the children's best interest that the department be named as temporary managing conservator, parents to be named as possessory conservators. For today, placement to remain as is. Children seem to be doing well in their placements. However, I do not like the fact that they're split into 3 separate placements. I know we're all on the same page, but I want to make sure this home study doesn't fall between the cracks, and that if it passes, we get these kids back together as soon as possible.
All right. I may be late, but I'll just make that part of my ruling. Okay, then, based on the evidence I've heard today, I am going to continue the department as temporary managing conservator, continue the current placements. At this late date, I don't know how far this home study is. And let me just be sure, Ms. Lopez, if you'd unmute.
Yes, sir.
We were talking about the home study being on a paternal, I guess it'd be a great aunt to the children. And then all of a sudden the name was mentioned. Is this home study that's ongoing with a paternal relative? You're okay with placement there rather than have these kids split up?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure we were talking about the same person.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then I'll order that home study, I don't know how far along it is, but it be expedited. And I will order both parents to both Hairstrand and UA drug screen by 4 p.m. tomorrow at Care Express on Ross Osage Street in Amarillo. Let me ask each of you, Ms. Lopez, do you have your own transportation?
Yes.
All right, and do you know where the Care Express is?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. McClendon, do you have your own transportation?
Yes, sir.
And you know where that is?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the Miss Mincy, if you'd be sure that the forms get over there to pay for that. It may be too late to do it today, but just first thing tomorrow morning.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I will order that the parents, at least at this time, the parents' visitation with the children be separate and apart from each other. So, okay, we will have the next hearing in this case, a status hearing on February 5th, 2024. Mr. McClendon, what that is, that's a fancy word to say that they're going to come up with a written plan of services to present to you. If you've got any problems with those, anything you think you shouldn't have to do or you're not sure you could do, that's the hearing that you'd want to bring that to the court's attention.
Judge, I'm gonna do everything it takes.
Okay, all right. And then again, I just want to reiterate this, that you have the right to ask for an attorney from now until this case concludes. So don't feel like you've said no, and if you change your mind, the court will consider whether or not you're entitled to a court-appointed attorney at no cost to you, okay?
Yeah, I like taking my butt whoopings from you, Judge. I'll continue representing myself.
Okay, all right.
Your
Okay,
Honor,
then. Yes,
we also ask for the reasonable efforts finding, both to prevent removal and to work back towards reunification as testified to in the hearing.
okay, yes, I will make the findings that the department has made reasonable efforts not to remove the children, and they made reasonable efforts to try to place the children with family, and obviously tried to keep them together. So, okay, that will conclude this hearing. That's our last hearing for the day. I will see y'all back on February 5th. You can go on the court's online docket the day or two before February 5, because it will be by Zoom, just like today's hearing, and then we'll give you an exact time we're going to have that hearing. So we will stand in recess. Everybody have a good evening and have a good rest of your week.
Thank
You
you.
too, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank y'all.